Hello, welcome back to C++ for Complete Beginners, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about what you need to install on your computer to get started with C++ development. Unfortunately, I can't give you exact instructions because exactly what you have to install depends on your platform, your operating system, your type of computer, and it depends on your personal preferences for that matter. What you prefer to use to develop C++. But I'm going to give you some pointers, so I'm going to explain what I recommend you to install and where to find it. And here, by the way, you can see a little C++ program in Eclipse, which is going to look completely puzzling to you at the moment, probably, but we're going to look at that in the next tutorial. So is to install your compiler. Now, if you're on Windows, you can use Visual C++ Express, which I believe is free, or Visual C++, the paid version, to follow this tutorial. But there are going to be some differences between what I show you and what you need to type in or do in Visual Studio. But you probably can follow that tutorial with this. Also on Windows, if you want a really simple solution to get started with, you can use code blocks, and I believe that can automatically download a compiler for you. So Visual C++ comes with its own compiler, and I think that code blocks can also download a compiler for you. These are actually integrated development environments. So those are two possibilities, and there are others, but what I recommend you to do is firstly install a compiler. And now if you're on let's say Mac or another Linux type operating system like Linux or Unix, then you need to search for the GNU C++ compiler and search for this for your system. So I'm using a Mac, so I'd search for GNU C++ compiler for Mac and install that on your system. And you may already have it, so I'm not sure what the best link is here, but you'll find it if you look around. Mac OS X install GCC compiler. Yeah, the GNU compiler for C++ is also known as GCC, and it's also known as G++. So you need to install G++ or GCC on your machine. And if you're using like a Linux type operating system, then you'll look for G++ or GCC or whatever. If you're using Windows, search for MinGW, and that's minimalist GNU for Windows. So that's a GCC compiler for Windows. So if you're using Windows, I'd recommend that you install MinGW. So hopefully you can do that. You're going to have to search a little bit in Google to find exact instructions for your operating system, but this is the first challenge, to install GCC or MinGW if you're on Windows, and then you've got a compiler on your system. The second thing that you need to do is you need to install an IDE. And again, Visual C++ is an IDE which comes with a compiler. CodeBlocks is an IDE which comes with a compiler, but I'd recommend that you use Eclipse. So if you search for Eclipse C++, let's say, then you can find the Eclipse CDT, and that is a version of Eclipse for C++. Eclipse is a kind of generic development environment. And the specific version of Eclipse for C++ is called Eclipse CDT. So this is the second thing you need to install. So just download and install that. You might have to do some configuration after this to to tell Eclipse where your compiler is. And if you do need to, you'll find that out certainly in the next tutorial, because it won't work. And you'll need to just Google for instructions for your system on how to tell Eclipse CDT where to find your compiler. So this is going to be a little bit challenging. You're going to have to probably do a little bit of Googling, perhaps some configuration, depending on your system. You might have to, but it's worth persisting with. And believe me, I've always thought anyway, that getting your first C++ program running, the first minimal Hello World C++ program, installing everything and getting the code in there and getting to that point is the most difficult thing about C++. So give this some time and be patient. Try to install a compiler, GNU or MinGW if it's Windows, and then install an IDE, and I recommend CDT, which will work on Windows or pretty much any system. If you've already got Eclipse installed, what you can do is you can go to the Marketplace. If you go to Help Eclipse Marketplace, whoops, that's the wrong one, let's cancel that. Help Eclipse Marketplace, and just search for CDT in here. You should be able to install it here. Just type CDT in that box and just search for it, CDT. I've already got it installed, so I don't know if this will actually find anything, but you can install it into an existing Eclipse like that. And you can also, another way of doing that if you've already got Eclipse, is just go to this Eclipse CDT site, type Eclipse CDT into Google, go to download, and then you can just put this URL here into Eclipse. So if you go to, let's get rid of that. Wizard cannot be closed. Okay, that's nice. But if you go to, that's really annoying. If you go to the Eclipse, I think it's the Help or Windows menu, there's a option in that menu for installing software updates, and you can just put this URL into a box if you select that menu option, and you can install CDT there. That's an alternative to using the Marketplace, but it's easier to use the Marketplace, and easier still just to download the CDT as a kind of standalone package here. So once you've done that, then you'll have everything you need to get started with developing C++ programs. And in the next tutorial, we're going to look at creating a really simple Hello World C++ program. So if you install everything and you think it's working, move on to the next video.